In one of my recent videos, I showed off my Animate weapon Necromancer League Start character and how I worked Spellslinger into the build. I didn't take the time to implement gameplay footage into the video, so here is a little video showing off and explaining how the character works in maps and how I personally think it fares against the Delirium mechanic in the current league. Hi guys, Catmaster here with another video. Today I want to quickly give you a little bit of an impression of how this character plays in maps. This is a level 86 Necromancer that I started my hardcore solo self-found league in Delirium with. I already made a video on this build. If you want to check that out, the link is in the description down below. If you want to support the channel, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more videos like this. It really does help the channel, and I thank you all for the support and welcome the new subscribers to the channel. So, this build, just for those of you who haven't watched the video, utilizes the reworked Animate weapon. I'm running this in a +2 helmet with Impale, melee splash and minion damage. I automate Blade Fall with Spellslinger as well as Desecrate and Flesh Offering, which means that I only have to attack with my Curse on Hit Vulnerability, Culling Strike, Kinetic Bolt setup in order to proc all 3 of those utility spells, which summon corpses, consume them for a buff for both my minions and my summoner character, as well as leave lingering blades on the ground that I can then summon with the Animate weapon skill. My tree looks like this, basically grabbing all the important stuff for summoners. The only thing that I missed so far is Ravenous Horde, which eventually I was planning to get on an Anoint. Now, this character has died in the meantime. I'll show you the rip clip in the end, but I was able to acquire you and nearby allies have increased critical strike chance and critical strike multiplier, medium cluster jewel, that I socketed into my large cluster jewel with Call to the Slaughter and Rotten Claws for the additional 20% chance to impale on hit with attacks. This, together with the Dread Banner and the Impale support gem, brings my minions to 80% chance to impale on hit with attacks. I'm also running a Carrion Golem for flat physical damage to my other non-golem minions, as well as a double Spectre setup for charge generation. You know it if you've seen summoner builds. This is a Host Chieftain and a Stygian Silverback from the Act 6 Riverways that have Frenzy and Power Charge generating abilities respectively. If you link them with Blood Magic so that they can spam their abilities instead of running out of mana, they will bring your minions to a constant 3 power and 3 frenzy charges. And if you're familiar with how charges work in Path of Exile, then you also know that they are much more efficient on minions than they are on player characters. Namely, minions and monsters gain 15% increased attack speed per frenzy charge, 15% cast speed per frenzy charge, 4% more damage just like players, and 5% increased movement speed per frenzy charge, as well as 200% critical strike chance per power charge, which means together with this node from the cluster jewel, which is another 50% increased critical strike chance, my minions are at 650% increased critical strike chance. Now, how much critical strike chance that in the end results in depends on the base stats of the weapon. However, when we're summoning Lingering Blades, we know that these have the same base stats as a Glass Shank, which means they have 6% base crit, and with the 650% increased critical strike chance between 3 power charges and Precise Commander, that will result in a 45% critical strike chance, which is quite a nice boost. Now, without further ado, let us go into a tier 10 bog map. This is a legacy map. I don't know whether bog is currently tier 10. I don't know this is all I have. The character died. This is in permanent standard league. So I can also not show you footage in the Delirium mechanic itself, but I can show you clips from my stream, like in the intro, where you can see how it fares against the Delirium mechanic. So when you get into a map with this build, the first thing you do is you spam Kinetic Bolt a couple of times, just so, well, these spawned really close to the entrance. That's not normal. Anyway, that normally you have like free space in the beginning of the map, but it already shows you that the build has some wind-up time. So then you spam Animate Weapon. You can pick an Unleash support gem, swap that in for minion damage, and use Unleash in order to get to your maximum number of minions quicker, and then replace it with minion damage afterwards. And as soon as you get your stuff up, you can go. You use Bone Armor whenever you walk into a pack, and you use Convocation in order to bring the minions to the pack, right? Everything gets basically instantly killed by the minions. Keep in mind this is a low map and I have no idea how it works in red maps. I've heard from other content creators that there is some problems at the top end with Animate Weapon, but I've also heard from people that they're pretty good. Other people told me that skeletons are still better because they are less dependent and basically more easy to resummon. So we got a really mixed bag here. I personally think that the build is really good. It's very fun to play. It doesn't need a lot of investment. But I can totally see that if you don't stack a lot of additional levels on your Animate Weapon gem, that the minions will die relatively easy to burst damage in higher maps. In particular, obviously, red maps with the Delirium effect. Another content creator, GhazzyTV, you might know him because he's been around for a long time, played the build with 2 Cold Iron Point daggers, which each grant +3 to the level of physical spell skill gems, and said he had no problems doing any content, but his summoner survivability was lacking. So he was looking to replace one of the daggers with a shield, but noticed a significant drop-off in minion survivability when he removed 3 levels from the gem by not using a second Cold Iron Point. So I don't really know what to believe in that regard. Also, BalorMage, my fellow podcast host for the Faded Connections podcast. By the way, Faded Connections every other Saturday, 9 PM GMT on my Twitch channel. If you haven't watched it yet, it's always really fun. We try to have usually 1 or 2 guests, but we will also do it without guests if we can't get guests. Tomorrow night, 9 PM GMT on my channel. That is 10 PM CET, 1 PM PT, and for the down unders among you, that's obviously on Sunday morning, 7 AM Australian Eastern Standard Time, and I think it's 10 AM New Zealand daytime. Anyway, quickly back into this. You can already see that the minions need to be resummoned. They last for around 100 seconds, which is why I don't think you really need Unleash while clearing, but it does help for the initial ramp up, because that one's pretty bad. I'm quickly gonna pop open all Roa nests, because this is the, the only semblance of challenging content that I can offer right now in this permanent league. So this is basically the Roa map boss with all things up. I can summon my skeletons. You see he's debuffed with vulnerability. The minions are chipping away, and then if you use Val Haste, it's actually kind of okay, right? Keep in mind that this boss is much easier to kill, obviously, if you don't fully buff him. This is probably the toughest tier 10 map boss that you can have. There was no tankiness mods on here, but just as a quick demonstration of the insane power level of animated weapons. Are they stronger than skeletons? I don't know. I haven't played a fully fledged skeleton build, and I know that skeletons have been nerfed in the patch notes a little bit. But due to the fact how skeletons work, they may still be very much better, because instead of having to jump into every pack and recall with convocation, you can just, you know, walk through the map, place skeletons here, place skeletons there, place skeletons here, place skeletons there, and they will kill the things. So skeletons may very well be better. Be aware of that. Don't think that animate weapons are the best summoner skill. Two other nitpicks regarding my setup quickly. There's absolutely no reason to not run Second Wind. I was oblivious to this because sometimes I forget the new additions made to the patch and I'm just focusing on progressing my character. You do really want Second Wind on Convocation. Second Wind gives you an additional use before the skill goes on cooldown completely, but that additional use already goes on cooldown when you use it. So you can use it a second time while the first, it basically turns it into a charge skill like Flame Dash, right? It adds 1 charge and it also lowers the cooldown. So with that you can get Convocation to, I think, below 2 seconds for sure. And that's really, really good. Definitely keep that in mind. Also, there's absolutely no reason to use Kinetic Bolt in the way that I'm using it, because you could just use Power Siphon, which does come with a built-in Culling Strike, so you wouldn't need to socket the Culling Strike support. As pointed out by TarkyCat in my comments. Thanks so much, shout out to TarkyCat. I simply used Culling Strike because I was looking for a replacement for the poison gem that I was running here. I was running Kinetic Bolt with poison, and I was running a Herald of Agony in my setup while leveling, because that just significantly helped the clear and the single target damage, and it was very easy with Kinetic Bolt and poison to maintain the poison stacks. So when I discarded the Herald of Agony, I was like, okay, let's throw that away and put in some other green gem, and I was in between Blind and Culling Strike. Now Blind is awesome, but I already got 3% chance to blind on hit. This has 3% chance to blind on hit with attacks, and since I got so many minions, my animated weapons have a maximum of 15 or 16 or something like that. And you got all the other minions, 3% chance to blind on hit with attacks when they're so rapidly throwing out the attacks is mostly enough to blind all single targets, especially because the blind lasts a couple of seconds. The blind gem would have also been good, but it's only a 10% chance to hit on attacks, and I don't usually stand still and attack a lot when I'm doing a boss or when I'm doing things. I just attack once in order to apply the vulnerability, and yeah, that's basically it. So Power Siphon, very valuable replacement here, because you really don't need to have the Kinetic Bolt. I just wanted to play with Kinetic Bolt because it's one of the new skills and I wanted to check it out, you know, romantic. But like this, I could save a socket. I'm not running the Precision. I should be running the Precision, but that's another story. And I was also not running Dread Banner apparently, so my damage was worse than it should be because I was lacking 20% Impale Chance. On that topic, you can get reduced mana reserved and increased effect of non-curse auras that will increase the effect of Dread Banner, and then in turn obviously give you a higher chance to impale enemies on hit with attacks for your nearby allies, as well as a little bit of impale effect, which is quite valuable when it comes to damage. Right, so my thoughts on this build in Delirium. I really like the build for the access to power that you get. The single target is incredible. You don't really need any specific items. Hell, you don't even need a 5 or 6 link. The 4 link with the animated weapons will probably last me into red maps, assuming that I hit the level 21 corruption on the animate weapon gem and I get another +1 to all physical spell skill gems or all minion skill gems, so that I would end up hitting the level 25, which is where you get the 17th weapon. Important to know, animate weapon at level 20 has a maximum of 14 animated weapons. At 21 you get 15. You get another weapon every 2 levels. So if you can get it all the way to 31, I don't know how. I'm sure there's a way somehow with Empower and with all the plus global gem modifiers that we have in the game right now. At level 31 you would get your weapon number 20, and that's obviously still really, really good. Going from 19 to 20 weapons is still more than 5% more damage. So yeah, single target is really, really good on the build. as you have seen, and that's not really the problem. The problem is the clear speed and the weapons getting from pack to pack and from monster to monster when they killed something. And you need to help them out a lot with convocation. It's not a really AFK style. You have to spam a lot of buttons, which is why the automation is great. But connecting to the topic of the Delirium mechanic, the combination of questionable clear speed at points with the fact that this build causes so much visual clutter on the screen, and it's already kind of difficult to recognize some things. I'm not sure I can recommend this build without restriction for Deliriums. Deliria? I don't know. But it is fun enough for me to play. I was very, very hyped about how far I got with it on such a low investment. And yeah, despite the fact that I died to something that was really questionable visibility, you can see in the clip where I die that I can't really see the bubbles, the Delirium bubbles behind the strongbox that I'm running up to. And then after I circle a couple of times around the pack and I don't notice that there is Delirium monster spawning that could have death effects, I run to the strongbox thinking I could loot now and then get instantly killed by the on-death effects. Yeah, probably not the best build to do that, because on other builds you would have more likely been able to tell that there was Delirium monster spawning, but in general I have to blame myself for this death because my movement pattern was not really correct. Knowing the lead mechanic, knowing how rippy those on-death effects are and how invisible the monsters can be in the middle of combat when you're not paying attention and you don't know what you should be looking for, I should have moved differently and I should have been able to survive that. I 100% blame myself on that rip. That shall be it for now. If you want more information on the build, keep in mind there's the other video that I already did. There may be some overlapping information, but there's also some more detailed explanation. Other than that, thank you guys so much for watching. Put the upcoming Faded Connections podcast into your calendar. Tomorrow, 9 PM GMT. That is Saturday, the 21st of March. And other than that, I hope you still have a wonderful experience in Delirium, especially with the upcoming changes. Things will get a lot more rewarding, a lot easier. And stay safe, stay healthy, stay at home. And I'll see you in the next video.